everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to my 25 Days of Craftmas series. During this series, I'm going to show you how to make these 25 Christmas projects using your Cricut. And I'll also share the SVG files I use to make all the projects for free, so you can make them too. It's day 19 and today I'm showing you how to make these mason jar Christmas tea light holders. Mason jar projects are super popular, and this is just a fun way to dress them up for Christmas. I love that you can add a tea light inside so it lights up during the night. Now let's go take a look at the supply list and get started. For this project, you'll need a quart-sized mason jar, some adhesive vinyl, and I actually used temporary vinyl instead of permanent because I thought it came off the glass mason jar a little bit easier. You'll also need some transfer tape, your weeding tool and scraper, some painter's tape, black spray paint or black chalk paint, a craft knife, some Epsom salt, a battery tea light, some spray snow, and of course your Cricut, a cutting mat, and the cut file. So grab your supplies and head over to your computer. The first thing we need to do is grab the SVG file we'll be using for this project. You can get it for free on my blog at burtonavenue.com. I keep all the SVG files for the projects I make and share in my free SVG library. These files will work with all kinds of cutting machines and they're free to everyone. Once you're on my site, just click on Free SVG Files and then Free SVG Library. You will need a password to get into the library, and there are instructions on the screen if you need to get one. For this project, we'll be using the cut file called Scene BA1818. To find it, you can either click on Craftmas 2021 and go to day 19, or you can use your browser search and just type in 1818. Once you've found that link, go ahead and click on it, and the files will be downloaded onto your computer. So I'm going to show you how to set up and cut this design in Cricut Design Space. If you're not sure how to unzip and import designs into Cricut Design Space, be sure to check out my step-by-step tutorial. So this is what the design will look like once you import it onto your Canvas screen. So the first thing we need to do is resize it so that it will fit around the mason jar. So we're going to select the design and go up to the width and change it to 11.5 inches. And leave the lock closed so the height will adjust proportionally. Now we actually need the design to be 12 inches across, but 11.5 inches is the max width that the machine will cut. So after we cut the design with our Cricut, we're actually going to extend these hills just a little bit so that the stencil is 12 inches. And I will show you how to do that once we get to that point. So this is really the only thing that we have to do on the Canvas screen. So you can click on the green Make It button. And then you'll be taken to this screen. And this is just going to show us what the design will look like on the cutting mat. If everything looks good, you can click on the green Continue button. Make sure that your Cricut is on, and once Design Space finds it, you'll be taken to this screen. Make sure that your dial is set to vinyl, and then you can go load your cutting mat. So you're going to place a piece of vinyl on your cutting mat and smooth it down so there aren't any wrinkles or bubbles. Then load it into your Cricut by pressing the up and down arrow button. When your Cricut is ready to cut, you'll see the C button light up. Press that and the machine will begin cutting. When everything is finished cutting, you can press your up and down arrow button again to unload your mat. Remove the vinyl from the cutting mat and trim away any unused portion of the vinyl. Like I mentioned earlier, the stencil needs to be 12 inches, but our machine would only cut it to 11.5 inches. So you can use a craft knife to extend the stencil to the edge of your vinyl sheet. Now you can weed away the excess vinyl. Since we're using this as a stencil, you'll be pulling out the houses and trees. The squares for the windows are pretty small and might come up with your vinyl. Just use your fingers to hold them in place as you peel off the vinyl. You'll also need to remove those pieces on the edge. Next, place a piece of transfer tape sticky side up on your work surface, and then place the vinyl on top of that. Smooth it down and rub over everything firmly with your scraper. Then trim off the excess vinyl backing and transfer tape. And you can actually trim off any of the vinyl at the bottom of the stencil. Grab your mason jar and clean the glass with some rubbing alcohol and let it air dry. Wrap the stencil around the mason jar and match up the two edges. You'll want to start the stencil about an inch up from the bottom of the mason jar. Place a piece of painter's tape over one of the ends. Then you can remove the vinyl backing. Now press the vinyl onto the jar. I thought it was easiest to just press it down with my thumb while I held the vinyl with my other hand. Once you get to the end, remove the painter's tape and press down the rest of the vinyl. Then rub over the entire stencil with your scraper and then carefully pull off the transfer tape. Make sure all those little window pieces stay in place. If your edges don't line up quite right, you can use a craft knife to cut away some of the vinyl so the two ends line up. Next, cover any exposed area above the stencil with some painter's tape. When everything has been covered, you can paint the mason jar. I used black matte spray paint so my jar would have a nice smooth finish. If you want to brush on the paint instead, I recommend using a chalk paint. Let the paint dry completely before you pull off the stencil. I let mine dry overnight. Now you can pull off the tape and remove the vinyl stencil. You can use a weeding tool or craft knife to help you remove any vinyl pieces that are still on the jar. The paint I used sticks really well to the jar. There wasn't any peeling at all, but it does scrape off very easily, so be super careful as you pull off those vinyl pieces. After you removed all the vinyl, it's time to spray the faux snow. We're going to be spraying it on the inside of the jar. I just did quick short bursts of the snow and tried to coat the inside the best I could. You'll want to let that snow dry for a couple of hours and then wipe off the top of the jar. Add some Epsom salt to the bottom of the jar and then add a little tea light candle. If you touch the snow, it could wipe off of the jar. So I found the best way to add the candle was to use some tongs. I also used a battery operated candle, which automatically turns on for 6 hours and then off for 18. And that's it, another Christmas project is finished. Didn't it turn out pretty? If you enjoyed this project, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more projects you can make with your Cricut, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell so you'll get notified each time I post something new.